Mutual funds go up, they go down. Well, Dave, I'm scared of the stock market. I don't know what it's going to do. I don't have any idea what it's going to do. Well, I don't either. I don't have any guarantees. I will tell you this. I've studied it in detail, and Ibbotson, which is one of the research firms, I pulled up all their research on it, and 97% of the 5-year periods in the stock market's history have made money. It means if you leave it alone 5 years, based on history, 97% chance you're going to make some money. 100% of the 10-year periods have made money. Yeah, Dave, but what about disasters and all that other thing? It's a very interesting question. Very interesting question. This is a study right here I hold in my hand from the Dow Jones firm. They are the people, one of the things they publish you see on the news all the time, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, right? Have you ever heard that as a measure of what the stock market's doing on the news? Here's an interesting thing. What if something happened out there in the world? We would call it a geopolitical event. That was a negative thing. Maybe JFK was assassinated. What do you think the stock market did the next day? What did it do? What did it do? Right, that's what it did. What about the Cuban Missile Crisis? When that was all over the front of the newspaper, what do you think happened to the stock market the next week? It didn't actually affect those companies, but it brought fear, didn't it? And fear usually translates to the stock market dropping. What about something like the Oklahoma City bombing? What do you think it did right after that? What do you think about Pearl Harbor getting bombed? Dropped. And those are the things we're afraid of when we start thinking about taking risk. I mean, what about 911? Oh, man. It definitely dropped. I mean, the stock market closed for several days. Wall Street is right adjacent to the World Trade Center. There was dust and rubble everywhere. Plus, the president didn't want the markets back alive right then because people were scared. He was afraid they were going to just go crazy and the market would tank. And so to calm everything down, to get everybody's pulse rate down, the market stayed closed for several days. When it reopened, we in the business all knew that the stock market, as soon as it opened, and you didn't have to be a stock market expert to figure out after the World Trade Center, after the towers come down, right? What's the stock market going to do when it opens up? What's it going to do? And it did, didn't it? Does anybody remember? Boy, in mere minutes, it dropped 500 points. It went crazy. All the newscasters going, oh, the world's coming to an end. Whoa, 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 woo, people are panicking and pulling their money out. Here's some interesting stuff, though. This study right here that I'm holding in my hands that I was telling you about with those major events studies what happens after a disaster 1 year later. Where is the stock market? When one of those things happens, goes down, where is it a year later? Of those things I named you, not counting 911, that's a different story, but of those other things like the Pearl Harbor, Cuban Missile Crisis, JFK assassination, Oklahoma City bombing, Kuwait invasion, all kinds of other things you could list down through here. There's about 10 or 15 of them on this. Out of every one of them here, within a year, the stock market returned to where it was within 1 year, every single time except Pearl Harbor. And it took it a couple of years to return because Pearl Harbor was off the tail end of the Depression, and we kind of got our tails kicked the first year of that war. It took a little while to get some tanks built and go kick some butt, okay? That's really what happened, wasn't it? If you know a little bit about history. And as soon as that started happening, the market started coming back and we started winning again. So bottom line is, a year later, it was history. You ever heard of Y2K? You know what the stock market did with Y2K? It went up the first day. I was all ready to go buy some because I thought it was going to go down. I was ready. But it went down the summer before when everybody was freaking out. And January, as soon as the bell rang for the new year, bang, the market went straight up. It was one of the best quarters in the stock market's history, as a matter of fact, coming out of Y2K. And everybody thinks that's going to be the end of the world. On 911, here's what's interesting. The day before the cowards attacked New York, on the day before, the Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at 9,605. 9,605 was the Dow Jones Industrial Average on 9/10. Of course, when we reopened, I just told you, it went and everybody freaks out, and it's all over the news. Did anyone hear one newscast when 59 days later the Dow came back to its pre-911 level? It closed on 11/9/01 at 9608. It was down for 59 days and came back. One of the worst attacks ever on American soil, and the stock market took a 59-day sleep off. Did you hear one newscaster say that? Not one. It doesn't, if it bleeds, it leads. It's not the sky is falling. But see, what I'm trying to tell you here is the American economy is very resilient. It's resilient against war. It's resilient against the attacks by cowards. It's resilient against anything like that, to the point that almost every time within a year it's come back, and in 9/11 it came back in 59 days. So it's a pretty safe thing to say, as a group, American companies are a really, really good place to have your dollars invested. Because think about it, if Home Depot closes, if Lowe's closes, if Kmart and Sears close, if Citibank closes, if Ford Motor closes, if General Motors closes, if General Electric closes, if Alcoa closes, and you just name them and name them and name them, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Hewlett Packard, you know, if all of these companies, if every one of them closed tomorrow, the stock market would be worth zero. Your bank isn't open either. Hello. And the FDIC has collapsed. It doesn't have that kind of strength. You better buy a gun, get you some soup. That's where you're facing at this point. You see what I'm saying? So these are really good places to park money over a long, long period of time. When you get ready to buy a mutual fund, using a broker is a good idea, and when you get a little bit more sophisticated, you may pick out a few funds on your own. I do some of both, and I've got all the training and have had all the licenses under my belt for many years. And I still use a broker for some funds. For your first fund, I really recommend a broker, and the reason is so that they can kind of teach you while you're making the investment, that you can be very comfortable with the process. You understand what you're putting the money in. And if you really understand your investing, well, you've scored on two fronts. One is you probably got a good investment, and two is you've raised your level of investment sophistication. Yeah, you're more knowledgeable and you're ready to go. Now, I'm often telling people, listen, if you invest, you can kind of calculate it based on 12%. The stock market, since its inception, has averaged about 11.8%. And I get these calls and I get this hate mail from these goobers all across America and say, you can't get 12% on your money. You just can't get, there's no mutual funds out there that get 12%. I mean, I don't know where you have your head stuck, but I tell you what, they're all over the place. There are tons of them. I spent 60 seconds on my Morningstar software just the other day getting ready for this talk. 60 seconds. I found 500 plus mutual funds that have a 15-year track record of 12% or more. I don't think you need 500. You just need a couple of them. So 12% is out there. It's out there. 12% is fairly easy to do. I own one mutual fund that has about just a little bit under a 13% average for over 70 years. And in the last 30 years, it's had 3 times it was down. Now, I don't sell mutual funds. I don't care if you own a mutual fund. It doesn't affect me one thing. But I can tell you this, a lot of our wealth is stored in America's best and brightest companies. Why? Because I think you're going to do well. Why do I think that? Because they've pretty well always done well as a group. Now, I didn't bet the farm on one of those names. I don't know which one of those names is great. And I'm not going to try to figure all that out. But I'm willing to spread it out and be diversified across several. And I even spread it out then across several kinds of mutual funds. You got to remember now, mutual funds are long-term investments. And when you're picking your Roth IRA or your 401k or doing your long-term investing, you need to spread your mutual funds out across 4 types of mutual funds. And you look for a mutual fund that has at least a 5 or a 10-year track record. If the mutual fund is not old enough to be potty trained, don't buy it. If it's brand new, there's no need to buy it. There's plenty of old ones out there. Like that one I said, 70 years old. I bought another one the other day, started in 1958. I bought another one the other day, started in 1972. And these all have long track records. It's like buying a home in a neighborhood where the trees are big. You kind of know what's going on. It's been there a while. You know what I'm saying? There's a track record there that I can count on, that I'm comfortable with. Now, spread your mutual funds investing across 4 areas. Put 1/4 of your money in growth stock mutual funds. Sometimes those are called mid-cap funds or equity funds, or you might even see it as an index fund like an S&P 500 in your choices at your 401k or that kind of thing. But put 1/4 in those. Mid-cap means this. CAP stands for capitalization. Capitalization means money. So this is a medium-sized company. If it's a middle capitalized company, it's in the middle. It's a medium-sized company. That's the process. Then put a fourth of your money in growth and income. That's the calmest one. It's the calmest one. These are also sometimes called a large cap fund. Cap means capitalization. Now, capitalization then means if it's large cap, these are big old dinosaur companies. They don't move real fast. They're not real exciting. They're not going to go up as much when it goes up, but they're not going to go down as much when it goes down. They're kind of boring. And you want this one in here. This is the very precise one. Sometimes these are called blue chip funds because the blue chip on the poker table is the most expensive chip on the poker table. Again, indicating a large company. And so if you hear I've got a blue chip fund, then that's a very calm mutual fund. I put a fourth in aggressive growth. That's the small cap, small companies, exciting, woo, emerging markets. This is the one, be our guest, okay? And you don't want to put it all in one of these. Sometimes I hear people say, I'm young, so I'll put all of mine in aggressive growth. That's stupid. If you put all your money in aggressive growth, it's like eating pizza and riding a roller coaster. It'll be fun, but you'll get sick. You don't want to put it all in there because they go way up and they go way down. I had one back in the 90s, made 105% rate of return in 1 year. Lost it all the next year. You don't want to take that ride with all your money, but having a little bit of that flavor in there is good for you when things are happening and doing well. So I have a little bit in there. I have a fourth in there. And then I put a fourth overseas and international, sometimes called an overseas fund, sometimes called an international fund, sometimes called a foreign fund. And you listen for these. Now, it has a kissing cousin called a global fund. I have a global fund that did very well in the last 10 years. Now, a global fund is the whole globe. It's got the whole world in it. It's the whole globe, okay? Which means it's overseas and some U.S., some American companies sprinkled in there. It's everything. And so it's a kissing cousin to the international. And international has no American. But a global has a little bit in there. And they do very, very well sometimes. But that gives you the ability to participate in companies that make products like we named a little bit earlier. So buy with a 5-year or longer track record. Long track record. That's what you're looking for. And spread it across those 4 kinds of mutual funds.